your bubbly and beautiful host, Elizabeth. It's the Caffeinated Cooper Show.
Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Good evening, everybody. I am so excited because we're back, and this is a great week to be back. Without any further ado, J.C. Schweingruber of Vista Front Partners. Here he is. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Great. Happy weekend. It's here.
Yes, happy weekend to you too, man. It's been a crazy. I really didn't know what to watch. Am I watching Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Am I watching the market? Am I looking at the news? There's more craziness, of course, between Putin and his mission to just obliterate Ukraine, which is horrible. Lots of stuff going on in the news this week, especially financially.
I know. It reminded me of that scene from Ghostbusters all the way back in 1984, when they're in the police station, like, heaven and earth coming together, cats and dogs, like living together, mass chaos, everything. I don't know about you, but I did watch a good bit of the Johnny Depp trials. I had to admit, stuff.
I got hooked. I gotta tell you, I got totally hooked. He is such an interesting character to watch. Some people, I think I've said this before about Elon Musk. It's like you can see this storm of words flying through his head, and he meticulously says, "Oh, I'm going to grab that one," and that one comes out, and he waits for the next word. It's so calculated and meticulous about just how their brain works, of how they communicate. And I got hooked. I mean, I've watched so many hours of it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And you mentioned the magic word Elon Musk. I mean, this guy has made news all week long. And anybody who's on social media that uses Facebook or YouTube probably has a Twitter account. And if you're on Twitter very much, you knew that Elon Musk has, it looks like we're going to have one of these old-fashioned, like a corporate raider coming in, trying to take over, a hostile takeover of a company that does not want him to buy them. And this is fascinating. I'm absolutely just enthralled. It takes me back to 1987, one of my favorite movies of all time, with Kirk Douglas and Charlie Sheen. Not Kirk. What's
Mike?
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas? Yeah.
Wall Street. Did you?
Oh yeah.
So I'm seeing this week, and the board is like, they put in this thing called a poison pill. You've probably heard this.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want Elon Musk coming in buying the company, probably for more political reasons than financial ones. And that was the kind of that's kind of the red flag that went up. It's like, oh, he's going to take that challenge.
Right.
And the day of the week at that point, Elon Musk, he's not going to walk away from a challenge. So we're in the middle of what's called a hostile takeover of Twitter. And it's all centered around freedom of speech. And that's the whole debate.
It is, and so he secured funding. He released that today. And then did you hear what he said right after it? He said, once I buy Twitter, we're dropping the W. So he wants to make it into titter.
That's so funny. Now, he put out a tweet that was so hilarious about a week ago. Remember that he was on Joe Rogan's show a while back?
Yeah.
And actually, they were in California recording. He was actually smoking a marijuana joint.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's like, holy cow, the CEO, the richest man on the planet, is sitting there smoking marijuana. So he took a picture from that show and tweeted it out and said, the first board meeting with Twitter is going to be lit. And I cracked up.
That is pretty funny because he is a guy, even during that interview, he's like, no, I don't smoke, marijuana. I don't do any of these things. So And that was really interesting. I think he was on twice, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was on a couple of times because he's become a lightning rod because he stood up for a lot of people on Twitter that were getting shadow banned and kicked off the platform.
Sure.
Because and he's no supporter of Trump, but when that happened, I think you've probably seen the attitude change. Like, why is the leader of the free world not allowed to tweet just because you don't like him and his politics? But the Taliban is tweeting, and the leaders of Iran, who are like weekly calling for the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people, why are they still tweeting? And it was so weird to see that, and I'm like, yeah, finally, he kind of joined the ranks of Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr, who kind of stood up against that corporate wokeism. And I think, I've seen several people sharing a Twitter post from people who work at Twitter saying that if Elon Musk takes over Twitter, they're quitting. Well, good riddance, because he's flat out said, listen, I'm a libertarian when it comes to freedom of speech, and he's probably going to take it private. He'll probably take Twitter private once he. So that was the big news of the week. So one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up, just kind of a fun fact for everybody, that poison pill that we talked about. Like, people are watching that saying, well, Twitter put in a poison pill to keep Elon Musk from buying Twitter. What the heck's a poison pill? That's probably what a lot of people are thinking.
I'm thinking it.
What was that? I'm sorry?
I'm thinking it.
Well, this is kind of cool. This is where we go back to one of my favorite movies, Wall Street, with Charlie Sheen, way back when. The phrase poison pill actually comes from like an old, the old Cold War. When you think about it, we had spies there out in the field, and if they got caught and they were going to be questioned, they had cyanide pills they would bite to kill them. And certain people in the high rankings of military that were in the field, if they were captured, they had those because they did not want to be questioned because of the information they had. They did not want in enemy hands. And it was called a poison pill. So the board of Twitter may look at Elon Musk, a corporate raider, as he is now. Who knew Elon Musk would be a corporate raider, old school 80s style, but here we are. And the board says, well, we want to make a rule so that we're going to change something inside the company so that if he tries to buy it, it'll discourage him from buying it. So what they're going to do, what they did is they put in, the board voted for, I guess what you would call, it's like a shareholder benefit sort of plan, so that if he buys a certain amount of Twitter, he owns 9%. When he announced that, 10% is the key. 10% means I have intentions of taking this company over. So he announced he had 9. So they make it so that if he buys more shares of Twitter and owns 10%, that anybody who owns Twitter stock, they will issue out more shares, brand new shares to the public at a discount for current owners of Twitter that own under 9%. All right. So, or whatever he's at. So people could go in and buy shares of Twitter at a discounted price and dilute the shares. So he owns 9% now. If they did that, depends on how many shares they issued out, he might suddenly own 5%. Well, he's like, I spent all that money. They brought the price of shares down. Well, that pissed me off. I'm out. I'm not going to spend any more. So that's what they're hoping. But so that's what a poison pill is. Or any kind of caveat a board may put in to discourage somebody from coming over and taking over. But when you think about it, there's some not so good things that can happen. So the first thing you got to think of is if you own Twitter shares and they did that, and you're not going to go out and buy more. Well, you owned them at 50, and now they're at 41. Well, you saw your share values go down. They diluted your shares too. So you have a risk of really ticking off a lot of your shareholders anyway. And some of the biggest shareholders out there are institutions, like pension funds, for example, that may buy shares of Twitter to hold in their pension fund, or mutual funds. Well, if the mutual fund manager that owns, 4 million shares of Twitter may think, why would I buy more shares of a company that's willing to do this? So when the price goes up, I'm probably going to start getting out. They're less likely to buy shares of a company whose board is willing to go that far. So there's risks. So that's pretty much what a poison pill is. Now, you want to hear some really cool history?
Sure.
This is when like this stuff started taking place in the 80s. This is when you always think they based that movie Wall Street off of similar stuff like this that happened in the 80s. So here we have, so think of Bud Fox and Gordon Gekko talking. And greed is good. You remember that powerful speech, if anybody's seen the movie. And he talks about what he does as a corporate raider. Well, there's one of the most, I guess, I want to say iconic, I guess, attempts at corporate raiding took place back in, I think, 2012 with the next company we're probably going to talk about, which is Netflix, which has been all over people's radar this week.
Right.
There are some people who are corporate raiders a la Gordon Gekko from the movies, and a lot of people probably don't know their names. But if you look back in history, some of the ones who did this, some of the more well-known ones, I'm trying to think of the oil man who was T. Boone Pickens.
Okay.
That's a popular name. Some people may know him. Ron Perlman. And then there's a guy now by the name of Carl Icahn. And I didn't mean to be like, if you see him use iconic, I wasn't trying to be clever there, but I can't think of another word. But Carl, he is a corporate raider. He tends to go in and buy these shares, these companies, come over, take over their board, change their structure. And he's like Gordon Gekko in a way. So this started, he actually was one who tried to do this with Netflix back in 2012. And he did. I remember this vividly because he did this on Halloween. And I remember people said, "Oh, trick or treat!" Carl Icahn just announced he owned 9.8% of Netflix, and he's probably and he doesn't buy that much unless he's coming in. He's about to kick the door in. So it's a trick or treat. What's Netflix going to do? And they didn't give him a treat by any means. They actually instituted a poison pill also, and that actually kind of got him out. They put in like a shareholder rights plan. So that people could buy more shares, right? So if anyone buys up to 10% of the company at that time, which was he actually had 9.98% to be exact.
Oh, wow.
So he had that much. So if he had got up to 10%, the board was going to allow Netflix shareholders to buy new shares at a discounted price, which would water down his value.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he ended up getting out of there, and I guess the rest was history. Actually, he did have a good reason for going in because the leadership at the time was doing a terrible job. And if any people think of Netflix today as this big streaming company, well, back then, Elizabeth, all you were doing was going online, picking which CDs you want. They would mail it to you. You had a subscription, right. They would pick your CDs. So that was the beginning of Netflix, and that was the beginning of the end for Blockbuster and those other types of companies because Netflix was revolutionary then. So why go to Blockbuster when Blockbuster comes to you? That was their whole mantra.
And that was just like in a flash, that was gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so crazy. I mean, we knew VHSs were falling the way of the dodo bird, but DVDs, I mean, you can still buy DVDs at Walmart or anywhere today. But so that was kind of what happened. He was the board changed the way that they were operating and then morphed into what Netflix is today, which became the biggest behemoth, leading all streaming platforms to the point where they were the lead dog. Disney started following them. CBS Viacom, which is now Paramount, following them. All these streaming platforms that are so big today, Hulu, Roku, all this, they started it. So everybody's kind of following them through the door. And now we see what happened with Netflix this week, the second big piece of news this week. So.
Well, exactly. And, we were talking about this kind of midweek when the stock was beginning to tumble for Netflix. And then it was just a complete dumpster fire, as they like to say. Because I've got the stock market data in front of me. Of course, Dow is way down. NASDAQ closed down. So exactly how far down is Netflix at the closing bell of Friday?
Let me pull up a quick quote here real quick.
So, we were talking about this and I said, it's quite interesting because this began as a slow burn, So 6 or 7 years ago, Roku channels, you could acquire those, you could start to see some streaming, and then it just exploded naturally with a pandemic. with the closure of theaters and, just so many people at home saying, oh my gosh, I've watched everything. What am I going to watch now? And they have all these different apps, all these different subscriptions to be able to watch what they want to watch. I think now that we're looking at, we are inflated in a recession. I'm already calling it a recession because there's no way out. I mean, we have an administration that's just like, well, sorry. I mean, they're not willing to step up and do anything that they needed to do months ago. So now we're in this situation.
Well, they're doubling down on some of the dumbest policies. Even at the request of probably a good solid third of the Democrats in Congress saying, please do otherwise. And so, yeah, it's tough.
It is. So I think people are canceling their subscriptions and saying, we got to cut this. And there was a news piece that was done, I believe it was yesterday, about some California residents. And one of the reporter was reporting from a gas station. And he said, you know what I just saw? I just saw somebody put 1 gallon of gas in their car because they can only afford 1 gallon at a time.
And in California, I guess with the different fuel standards, they might be getting 15 miles in the city. 20.
Right. Exactly.
That's to and from work.
Mm-hmm.
If they only live 3 miles and they get stuck in traffic, like every other person there. That's sad. So yeah, you see a lot of people dropping the streaming now. It closed today at $215.52 a share. Now let me give you a little indication of how far this thing has fallen, because it was back in, well, a lot of people, I guess in late 2001, I guess pandemic, I mean, they did really well, but they got up as high as $680, close to it. And this was just back in November 21. So we're not talking long ago. And even some of these, and I can't remember if I heard this properly, and don't take my word for it, but the same Carl Icahn guy I mentioned that was a corporate raider still to this day. I think he had bought in at 500 something when the shares kind of started crashing. And I heard somebody said today on CNBC or Fox Business or one of those that even he got out.
Wow.
So it is down to, it got as low as, 215. And the after hours, it's down to 214.05. So that's a long way to go from close to $700 at your peak. And you got to ask, again, why? There's such a flood of streaming services coming in here, so there's a lot of competition. But for the first time in over a decade, I think since 2011, Netflix actually lost subscribers. So they said about 200,000 in the first quarter. They also gave the further indication that they're likely to lose up to 2 million in this quarter. So that's a lot of subscribers.
Million.
They did raise their price, but I don't think the price, what are they raising, a couple of bucks? I mean,
same with Amazon. I mean, if you just look at Amazon Prime, they raised their rates year before last. They raised their rates this year. Everybody's raising rates. I mean, so many companies don't have a choice. I'm not saying that Amazon doesn't have a choice. I mean, they can certainly streamline the way they do things, because I know that if I place 2 orders in the same day, they're coming at the same day in multiple different boxes. So
yeah, that is kind of frustrating to see that happen. Now, I know sometimes when you order a product, it comes from like another business that owns that product online, and they ship separately. And so I kind of get that, but they are bad for that, shipping 2 things in 2 different boxes when it's coming there in the same day. I don't understand why they don't do that a little bit better. But
there's another one that is a streaming service for kids, though, Disney Plus. And I wanted to ask you about that one, because there's a lot of hubbub going on. There's a lot of parents that are saying, no, you know what, I'm deleting it for political reasons. And we're all very aware of what those political reasons are. So they reported some losses, but it was on their reservation. So actual physical bodies in their parks. It says, however, they're claiming there's no evidence that it's due to the political drama that's happening. But Disney lost 172,000 reservations recently. That's $636 million in this past week of losses they will be encountering.
That's probably, if I had to wager a guess, I'm going to say probably part of that is political, and part of it is the inflation. Probably about a third political, 2/3. Hey, we see what's coming down the pike on Main Street, and families are starting to pull back. And I totally understand that, and I get frustrated when I see companies that get political and go woke and try to get involved. And I just want companies to do one thing for me and investors: make money. Period.
Yeah.
Just run a good business, run a solid business. If you're in entertainment, then entertain these kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not get involved in the classroom and getting a tug of war with a political wing in Florida. Let's just stop that. And at some point, companies are going to sort of wake up to this, I think. I know there's a lot of backlash, I guess. Well, I'll leave that alone, but there's a backlash against a lot of corporations from community leaders now, based on who corporations and organizations like NBA and NFL and Major League Soccer had donated to and things like that. And I think people are kind of slowly starting to see companies and organizations and sports affiliations, they've sort of overstepped the bounds that they probably didn't see the line and they stepped over it. And we're starting to, and they're kind of feeling that now a little bit. But it's a lot of it is, like you mentioned before, just bad policy, inflation. We're not opening up pipelines, which we should, but we're going to open up our strategic reserves and give part of that to Europe. Well, California may be still completely woke in their politics, but I feel for them paying $6-7 a gallon of gas. I mean, people cannot survive like that.
No, you certainly can't survive like that, because it's not just the gas. It's food is already exorbitant from several years ago of the last time that I was in California. Now, good grief, it's just ridiculous. But as you mentioned sports, so there's something that I want to talk to you about. Did you see this past weekend's football game is it called the America's League, the NFL America team that played?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. I knew that they were bringing out a summer league or spring league. Well, I think there's 6 teams or 8 teams.
I believe so. And right now they're playing all their games in Alabama.
Oh, how come they're playing all of them in Alabama?
I don't know, but they're playing it all in Alabama. Tickets, I believe, are about $10 if you want to get a ticket and go and watch. And I was watching, and I thought that they had the arena pretty full. And my husband was watching. He's like, no, there's like a lot of seats in between people. I think they have them spread out so that it looks really packed. And I was just online a second ago. I'm trying to find what the attendance was of that particular game. I've hit a website where it wants me to say, yes, go ahead. I want all your cookies, but I don't. So I don't know what their capacity was. And I'm curious, here again, it seems like kind of bad timing for all those types of fun extras that we have in our life, right? Vacations, fabulous resorts and hotels and going out to games. They're going to be, sort of special occasions. I don't think they're going to be the every weekend thing with what we're coming into, especially if we don't have some major shakeup in the direction that we're currently going, which is like downhill financially.
Right. Which kind of brings me to the next point in this week's news. The market just was down sharply today. Not just the Dow Jones, which is a combination of 30 stocks, but the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, the NASDAQ, which is your tech heavy companies. All these were down. It didn't matter if you had a great thing. Everything went down today. I mean, just even some of my favorite, like every one of my favorite companies got shellacked today. And these are days you go in and you buy. And just so people understand, like it's tough to have that stomach to watch that, but just so people understand from a smart investing choice,
Mhm.
I waited till the last hour of the market when it was down 800, when I saw it was down like 500, 400 most of the day. And then when those accelerated in the late part of the day, I was like, okay, there's a lot of fear on Wall Street. And we're going into a period where we're going to start shaking a lot of people out of the market that are afraid.
Yeah.
That's a healthy thing. It's a scary thing, but nervous money never really helps a bull market get traction.
Mhm.
So when those people get shaken out, that's probably a healthy thing for the next bull run, the next leg up. So I'll go in today at 315. I start buying select companies that I liked that may be aggressive, but we're not investing for 6 weeks or 6 months. We're investing long term. So yeah, I'm gonna start getting excited today. I was actually pretty excited. Yeah, that's something people need to kind of keep in mind. Why did it go down? Well, yesterday, Jerome Powell, who's the Federal Reserve Chairman, this is nothing new. This is not new news. So it's not breaking news here, but we've talked about it on the show about how the Federal Reserve is going into the period where they're raising interest rates, and that people need to be prepared for rising interest rates. That's going to impact everything from student loans to home loans, personal loans, your credit cards, everything. So, so people need to be prepared for it. And we had mentioned about how much the Fed might raise, and at the first meeting they raised a quarter of a quarter point. Well, we're still historically so low. So by the year's end, they wanted to have interest rates around 3%. I'm totally fine with that. Raising interest rates to get rid of inflation is a good thing. You have to get rid of inflation. But when you do something like that, you run the risk of having a recession, which the other policies of the administration are certainly exacerbating. So this is not a pretty scenario. But my perspective, and whether I'm right or wrong, is that you probably need to front end load those interest rate hikes. Let's do 50 basis points instead of 25. Let's not slow walk this up when inflation's getting close to 8-10%. Let's get a hold of it before it gets too far out of control that you have a really hard time catching it. And then we can try to manipulate. We have some room to wiggle. So if the economy's slowing down, if you have 3 or 4% interest rates, well, you can lower them a little bit if you need to at that point, if inflation's under control, to help boost the economy. Okay, so if we have nothing, if we have almost zero interest rates still, or way low, 1% or whatever, or 1.25% federal funds rate, you don't have much dry powder, I guess, to combat a recession. So we need to get those rates up there and get back to normal. Normal is probably about 4 to 5% interest rates. We haven't been normal in 2 decades. Let's get back to normal so that we do have a recession. We have some wiggle room with those rates to lower them to boost the economy if we need to. I think if inflation were under control coming out of the pandemic, people had saved enough money, I think that households would have been okay. But when you kick inflation on top of them, it's like kicking sand in your face at the beach. Then suddenly they're not okay. So first and foremost, we got to kill inflation, even at some of the risks of the economy, which tells me that, if people are looking to invest, if you're investing, if you're nervous about, if you don't like the stomach of the ups and downs for long-term investing, and you want to be even more conservative, but you still want it in stocks, start looking at Main Street stocks. Because Wall Street and Main Street are two totally different beasts.
So what is a Main Street stock?
Well, I say things like companies that actually make something that have profit. A Main Street. I was looking at one earlier, and this is again no specific advice to buy this company or anything without doing your homework or talking to an advisor. But like Tredegar is a company. They make packaging. I mean, it's just a manufacturing group that makes packaging to package products up and for them to sell. So somebody may be making something. It's kind of like Coke or Pepsi would be making their product. Well, who do they have to go? I mean, they can't just send out liquid, so they have to have cans and bottlers to actually work with to do that. So companies that actually make something that is, and they have an income stream based on things that people need. Some of your food producers, I know it's not sexy, but like something like a Procter and Gamble. I mean, people need Charmin, right? I mean, people
Mhm.
need to shave, they need to brush their teeth, they need to shower, they need soap and shampoo. Like these are things that people need. Main Street type products, things that you need every day in your home. Liquid plumber, yeah, those types of things. Crisco, Clorox,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So
So
I have a question. I'm
yeah,
sorry, I don't mean to jump over you, but I was noticing here. So I am using the help of CNN Business here to see some of the stocks and how they closed at the closing bell this afternoon. And I'm noticing that Japan is recording losses, London, Germany, Hong Kong, they're all recording losses. Is it possible with your education? I'm looking at a broader map here, um, everywhere around the world except for China, which reported a 0.23% gain. Everywhere around the globe, they saw losses. Is it possible that this could go in the direction of a depression?
well, I would say anything is possible, but I think we're a long way from a depression. Um, one of the little secrets that people don't talk about when it comes to global economics and global markets right now is China, because China is the currency manipulator. They're always manipulating their currency. When they report things like GDP, they always inflate their numbers, so you don't know really what is coming out of there. Now, China's biggest market was real estate, and that Evergrande company just crashed. And all these other real estate companies in China that were trying to do what mimics of Evergrande they're having the worst problem. So China actually lowered their GDP. I think they said it would be like maybe a 2.8% growth.
Mm,
It sounds pretty good in America, right? 3% average growth is pretty good. Well, 2.8 to me, when they say they're doing 2.8, it probably means they're doing negative 2.8, negative 5%.
wow. Okay.
They can manipulate their data so that they could be crashing and the rest of us wouldn't know. So there's a reason why companies like Apple 3 or 4 years ago started noticing supply chain issues and started moving things out of China.
Hmm.
We just come to find out recently that a lot of companies actually had started moving and not all of a sudden caught with their pants down with this, with the supply chain issues that's going on. It's bad enough. It could have been a lot worse. So that's kind of one thing we're realizing. But China's a big part of the global economy. But how big of a part are they? We really don't know. Is America still the number one economy and number one market people want to go to? Absolutely. So when it comes to other markets around the world, I mean, their markets are, they operate on their own too. They have good companies and bad companies, and people make decisions in those kind of countries just like we would here. But a lot of foreign money comes here to invest.
Hmm.
So when they see us kind of sliding, then that actually, and to some degree, weighs on the psychology of investors in other countries. Well, so it sort of, I want to say a little bit of a domino effect, but I wouldn't say it's all exactly correlated.
Okay.
Because any given day you can look at the market and it'd be 50-50 mixed globally. But
Interesting.
but that is interesting that you look at all those and the only one up is China.
Yeah.
And for all we know, they could have had money from the Communist Party pumping in to keep the market up that day, for all we know.
But it's very difficult with communist countries because of their reporting, just like you were saying. They don't have to be transparent. They don't even have to be honest in their reporting. They can just say whatever.
Yeah.
And there's no checks and balances, so you don't really know exactly where they are. It's kind of a really hairy animal in that. I was reading just a second ago about top stock picks. Now, I know you're not advising, you're not giving anybody any tips or anything like that. This is from Investopedia.com. I believe I'm saying that right. And it's striking me that Foot Locker is one of the ones that they're saying, yeah, go for it. Invest in Foot Locker. I would think that, I guess shoes, you want to buy good shoes. So people are still spending their money on nice things and good athletic wear. I'm surprised that they're one of the ones at the top of the list.
Foot Locker, yeah, that's a company. It's because a lot of people when you think Foot Locker, you think Nike.
Sure.
But there's so much together there, and Nike is one of the top brands globally. I'm interested to see here. Foot Locker is actually trading around close to at $28.99. So 52-week high is 66. So it's come down a lot from its, it's down year to date from the first of the year, down 33%. I'm not surprised that they would have a company like that up there, simply because it's a global company. I mean, they're in Japan, and they're in pretty much everywhere. And you see Nike tennis shoes on people every country in the world, it seems like.
You sure do. And they must really be hustling to keep those stores open. So within this article, it's saying that there's still roughly almost 3,000. So it's 2,900 retail stores in 28 countries worldwide still open. And we all know what's happening to malls, at least here in Atlanta. Malls are not a safe place to go to. It's unfortunately where human trafficking is happening most of the time. A lot of the stores are closing, even the big box, the anchor stores in these malls, they're closing.
Yeah.
So it's just not like it was in the 80s and 90s to go hang out with your friends and mom would drop you off at the mall. It's not that anymore. So Foot Locker is one of those stores that was always in the mall, and they must be finding new locations. And I guess online.
Online is a big thing. Now, I like the way you're thinking about this, and I think every investor needs to think about it in the terms that you're talking about it. If I just pull up Foot Locker and I'm just kind of looking through those, just the basic numbers, right? Just the basic stats, your PE, your forward PE, earnings per share, revenue, and then debt to equity. Those basic ratios that I would look at. The numbers don't look as bad as selling off 50% of your shares, but at the same time, a lot of analysts, I'm just kind of looking at the analysts, I'd probably give it about a C, on a scale of like what you get in grade school. Now, because Investopedia would have that, I'd do a little bit more of a deep dive, go read a couple of corporate reports, their last couple of earnings announcements, and kind of see where they're going with it, and before I make a decision on something like that. But investors need to really think about what you said. Where are you shopping at, and what makes most sense for you? One of the great example of this was back in, I want to say, the mid 2000s, when you had Dollar General and then Dollar Tree, and then what was the other, Family Dollar?
My dollar.
And then there was way too many dollar stores out there. And you could tell how the economy was doing by how many people, like when their numbers were going up and Walmart's numbers, were steady, then you could tell that there was something in the economy going on, that people are gravitating to your dollar stores all of a sudden. And those stock prices went way up. I mean, Dollar Tree was up 100. I don't know what it is now, but it's way up there, 100, 200 something. But one of this, I was listening to a fund manager. I was at the seminar, and this fund manager came in talking about it. And he had already bought a big stake in, I think it was Dollar Tree at the time. And he said he was just perusing around and in Walmart with his wife and kid, and this is up in Boston or something, and they got to talking to somebody else in the aisle, a friend of his wife's or something they ran into, and started asking him, like, where else are you shopping or whatever, and she said, and the wife said, well, for all my cleaning supplies, I'm stopping at Dollar Tree because it's way too much here. And he started thinking, okay, these are people that we know well, they're upper income. Why are they going to Dollar Tree? So he goes to Dollar Tree and realizes, like, where he was at, I guess it wasn't some filthy, dirty store.
Right.
You have filthy aisles, and they're well kept, well organized. Everything is $1 or less. And he saw people, middle income people, going in there buying cleaning supplies, toothpaste, floss. They actually started having like snacks and candies in bags. They were going in there to buy Christmas wrapping paper. And he said, wow, I have never been in one of these stores. And he actually started going around within the tri-state area up there. Every time he saw a Dollar Tree, he would pull in. And he wanted to see how Dollar Tree was doing, just like what you're doing. You go to a mall, it's not safe there anymore. Do I want to put money into one of those retail stores that are in there? I mean, even the Gap lost a bunch of money today. They announced their earnings, and they're that's not looking good for the next couple of quarters for Gap. And that includes things like Old Navy, that's part of their banner. And
Right. You know,
so
Old Navy, they have a very boxy cut. So I would say that you could pretty much order online from Old Navy. The Gap, it's always had, in my opinion, a variation on their cut. It's sort of like, if you want to buy something from one particular designer that you always go to, you know how it's going to fit, you know how they cut that size. It's almost like the Gap is like a TJ Maxx or Marshalls or something.
yeah,
It's really hard to shop online from those stores. And I think that is just going to be the kiss of death for some of these stores.
yeah, and so that's the thing. If somebody that's watching this is interested in a certain company, don't think of investing like gambling. It's not. If you're interested in a company or a product, just look into the company or the product. Go in the store. Is that something you're willing to own? Because you're not gambling. You're taking ownership in a Walmart or a Dollar Tree or a company like Tredegar that I mentioned that makes the packaging. I mean, the people. Another thing that this fund manager said that was really interesting is he went to a bar to hang out near a factory this big factory that manufactured these products for this company, and he wanted to see how the employees liked working there. So he went in there to listen to see if people complain and pissed and moaned about their jobs. And when he found out a lot of people were really happy working there, so if you think you might like buying Amazon, I would at these prices, like the whole Netflix thing and Microsoft and Google and Amazon, all these companies like that, great companies, well-run companies, no problem with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't been interested in those companies in such a long time because they're trading at such high prices.
Mm-hmm.
So if the management is solid, you have a good work environment, and those prices come down. Days like today when it's down 900, it went on sale.
Right.
And are you still willing to pay that price for it? If not, then let it go on sale again, because it will.
I think that's the most intriguing thing that you've said time and time again, of just your thought process behind when the market is down, everything's on sale. That's your time to buy. And it has such strong logic behind it. It's so simple. It's so easy. And I think so many people overthink financial investing. And I love that you say that. And to your point of ownership. So one of the other stocks that's listed here, and I'm kind of baffled by it, because I would say for me personally, there's no way that I'd step into this. But Boston Properties Inc. is one of the ones that is listed as, a great stock to take a look at, maybe buy a little, see what happens. So Boston Properties is a developer, owner, and manager of Class A office properties in Boston, Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. When I'm reading that, I'm like, nope. Like, no, not a good idea. Those are all cities that are like just going down fast.
Yeah, and I mean, and the markets can get out of control there fast, and they can drop like a rock there fast, and we're witnessing that right now. Mm-hmm. So, I guess the question is, has it had the crap kicked out of it enough that you'd be willing to buy it? Price, what is it, about 125, something like that?
And that's a good thought to have too, because we are talking about Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York and Boston, and all of these cities will regain. It's just, that's a long game to play. That's not a short game. Yeah,
real estate. When you're talking about real estate, it's a little bit of a different beast. And I will have some clients in real estate investment trusts, which is kind of what this is. But I like them in areas that are going to be a little bit more profitable. The first thing I look at is what their dividend yield is and how consistently do they pay it, and do they have the cash flows, and then what debt to equity do they have. That's important. Something like Boston here that you just mentioned, debt to equity ratio 225%. It's pretty high. Okay. But you look at some of the things that are PE ratios. It's the price to earnings. So whatever the price is right now, if you divide that price by the earnings per share that it has, which it looks like here is $3.17 a share, it gives you a PE of 39.63. One of the things, and this is just if you're doing research at home, this is what you like to do, go look at other real estate investment trusts or find out what other companies are similar and what are their PEs. That'll tell you whether something's overpriced or oversold. The lower the PE, the better the value.
Okay.
But again, sometimes you got to wonder when something sells off so much, there's probably a reason it's selling off so much. So be careful about that. But if it's a good company, it's hung up and, it's just the whirlwind of what's going on in the market. Write it down, take note. When you're comfortable at a certain price or a certain time, then buy. Don't ever try to time the market. I don't know how low these are going to go. And anybody that says they do is kind of foolish. I mean, you can look at the technical charts and look for patterns and try to get an indication, but the smartest thing to do is try to find a fair value and say, am I paying a fair value for this company? And if it drops $5 more just because of just the market in general, well, it's on sale. I liked it at 50. I love it at 45.
Right. And looking here again, the most momentum. So stocks that have had the most momentum over the past week, it's natural gas, it's oil, more natural resources. I'm looking at company after company. There's one that is a producer of aluminum and aluminum products. Let's just put it that way, because my lips are not going to get around that one. So that one seems to have really strong logic that, our natural resources, of course, are going to be, it's going to be the last thing you shut off. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as prices get pushed up, you see, companies that are ran well, I mean, they're going to do okay. But again, it's kind of a long game. Yeah. I try to find companies that are a little bit more diversified across, not just in one segment, but has, potential. And, again, I try to compare them to other companies that are similar, find which ones have a better value, which ones maybe have more upside. I'm not going to lie. That's some things. I've been in that industry recently, and but I do have a price ceiling that I'm looking for on some of those. I can't control what happens with the oil from day to day. I just know that the world is choppy. Russia and Ukraine's not going to end anytime soon. We still have inflation. All these things are still out there, and people try to put a different spin on it from day to day. And some days the spin is bought, and some days it's not. But I have a price ceiling, that I might buy something at 25, and my price ceiling is 35. I think you can probably get up to there or not. And then when it gets relatively close, I may not even wait till it hits that ceiling. When I'm relatively in that ballpark, whether I get a home run or a triple, if I'm winning, I'm winning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't get too greedy, but the thing is, like Warren Buffett said, when everyone else is fearful, it's time to get greedy. And when everybody else is greedy because everybody's making money, it's kind of time to get fearful. Right now, there's a lot of fear on Wall Street. And as the Fed keeps raising rates, we'll shake more people out, and people will jump out. And then we'll have people who are optimists looking for long-term gains step back in, and we'll have another leg up. And I'm excited about that. I mean, in the meantime, who knows how long inflation is going to linger? Who knows how long Ukraine, Russia will be at it, or supply issues? But it's a long game. It's not. We're in this for a while. We're not. If we're in it for 6 months, just don't be in it. So.
Absolutely. So can you tell us what, in your opinion, is the future cast for next week, which is taking us into the 1st of May?
I would probably say a little bit more volatility. I wouldn't be surprised after such a big sell-off today if we had another big sell-off Monday or a big rally. I mean, this kind of volatility with the VIX index, the VIX that I watch, which is an index. All it is just telling you what the volatility is. It's a measure of volatility in the stock market. We'll probably see more of that Monday because it spiked today. If it's down again Monday, then I'll look to buy. If it's rallying, I'll just sit there and smile. Keep doing my homework on some other things to put on the buy list.
You can smile because you're making money.
well, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, when people ask, like, how do I make money? I don't make any commissions. Like, I don't make zero. The only way I make money is if my clients, their values go up. If I charge you 1% of 50 grand, well, 1% of 60 is much better than 1% of 50.
Yeah.
So I have a vested interest to make sure that the values go up. And it sucks when they go down, and it's fine. I bite the bullet, but I have a responsibility to make good decisions for people, and it's going to work in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to let go of you just yet. I would love to talk about that other piece that we were saying that we were watching in the beginning of the show, right? This Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. What did you see? How much of it did you see this week?
More than I probably should have. It was really capped. I'm like, I haven't watched this much of a trial since O.J. Simpson was trying to fit a glove on his hand. She looks menacing sitting back there, just the glare on her face. And, I guess, coming out of I guess my first thought was coming out of the Me Too movement, which was incredibly needed. But there's another movement of women who have totally abused some of the men in their lives too. Yeah, I like what Will Smith did, but man, his wife certainly put him through some rough times, and it looks like she has too. This Amber Heard has too. I didn't know that she had put a cigarette out on his face until they had photos there of him in the emergency room after she cut the tip of his finger off with it. Was a busted whiskey bottle she was drinking?
It was a vodka bottle. That was like the third bottle that she had flung at him, and it just happened to hit his hand.
Well, on Twitter, I noticed people making putting pictures up of her over the years. And one of them was where I guess she was at an after party, just filming, and I guess it was a rap party. So they were having a party after she finished filming something. And I guess she was hanging on to these texts to say, see, look how controlling he is. He was like, it's 5 a.m. Are you coming home?
Oh, that's
the very same rap party, I guess, a picture had come out of her sitting on the lap of this guy who's like 6'10" pro wrestler. And they're just like glaring at each other. I'm like, oh, she's totally flirting with this dude. And he's been known to, he went out with Jenna Jameson, for crying out loud. So we know what kind of guy he was. And those pictures are floating around Twitter. And I'm like, okay, I would be a little angry if, my wife was trading laps with dudes at an after party and, telling me she's a little too busy at the moment and stop being paranoid and stop being jealous. Okay.
Yeah, Jane, she's weighing in here, and she's saying so much of what I was about to say. I totally agree with you, Jane. She's saying, I think it takes two to tango, and they both contributed to the relationship issues. Signs they should not be together. Now, we have not heard Amber Heard on the stand yet. I believe they're going to finish up with him on Monday, and then she takes the stand, is my understanding. But I don't know, because he went through like 10 hours of just him and his attorney. He's gone through at least 10 hours of him and her attorney. So I think the cross-examination of him is coming to a close. So far, of course, she took video and there's pictures and there's unflattering this and that and the other. I will say he's just sitting there saying, yes, I did that. Yes. Did I do drugs with that person? Yes, I did. Yes, we did ecstasy. Yes, we did cocaine. Like it's all out there. And I'm thinking, I hope for him that there's some positive return in exposing everything. He's suing her and he is like basically naked sitting on the stand right now. Everything's exposed, from parties with hookers to calling her this, that, and the other, and unflattering text messages while he's mad. Wow.
Yeah, he's certainly been a pill as well. I don't doubt that one bit. And this is the seedy side of Hollywood that Hollywood doesn't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
This completely toxic. I wonder how many relationships like that are toxic.
Mm-hmm.
We just seen two of the biggest leading men in Hollywood in the last 20 years just fall. Careers gone. And so I hope whatever issues they have, they seek some counseling, they come to grips, get clean and sober, do what they have to do. Because like Jane says, it's just sad because they're are famous. Yeah. Their personal issues are now public. Imagine how many people whose personal lives are kind of wrecked with stuff like this too.
Yeah, human nature is not necessarily designed to be able to have everything out in front of all your fans, all your family, all your friends, all your business partners and relationships. It's quite a heavy load to carry. I have my own personal concerns for both of their mental health after the fact of all of this. We have Ken Dodge, he's weighing in saying she seems psychotic. I would agree, but overall, in my opinion, you're not going to have a relationship if both of you are whacked out of your head on MDMA and, excessive alcohol and cocaine and pills and then like multiple of those things within the same 24 hours. You're hardly even having a relationship with yourself. How can you have a relationship with anybody else?
Yeah, and like Ken said, she called her psychotic, and she may be, but he certainly saw something he liked there. So at some point, you gotta, how much sympathy do you have for people who live these lifestyles and walk into this stuff? I mean, it's not like Johnny Depp or Amber Heard doesn't know 50 other people in Hollywood that have done the exact same stupid stuff.
Exactly.
And they, just repeat and repeat, rinse and wash, rinse and wash. And it's just, I don't know, it is sad. It is really sad, but I don't know. Maybe Ken, polish up that suit. You may be the next Captain Jack Sparrow, my friend.
You may be. I told him that when I was texting him yesterday. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a blockbuster feature film someday of just all the stories that are coming out. And it's only it's only his side so far. We haven't even seen her side. And I think when she takes a stand, it's going to be boohoo tears. It's going to be really dramatic. And I don't mean that to belittle her or criticize her. If she was abused in any shape, form, or fashion, that's real. Same with him. That abuse is abuse, no matter if it's emotional, if it's psychological, which I guess would be the same as emotional, or physical. So I think that he has been so interesting to watch. His composure, his quip about him, when it's probably not good. I'm sure it's not advised by his legal team for him to be kind of politely, gentlemanly talking back to the cross-examining attorney.
It's funny though.
It's so funny. What was it? What did he call the glass of wine after that one video? Some mammoth pint, or you poured yourself a mammoth pint. I can't remember the exact verbiage. And he's just like, a large glass of wine, maybe, but I wouldn't call it this, mammoth pint of wine. It's quite.
It is funny, but it's so hard when you watch him doing that not to see the characters he's played over the years.
That's right, Ken. It was a mega pint.
But it'll be interesting to see where the trial goes, and we'll hear her side next. But yeah, people are just bad to each other, and I don't know. You feel no relationship should ever be that toxic. Like, I'm not a relationship advisor, right? I might tell you what to do with your money, but like, if you're in that situation, just get a good divorce lawyer and a good therapist and walk. Man, there's no reason you got one life, no reason to live it that way.
Exactly. All right. One last thing. Easter Bunny. Who's in the Easter Bunny suit on the White House lawn for the egg roll that seemed to handle our president? Who's in it? Top 3 people. Who do you think?
Oh my God, Obama.
Ooh, that's a good one.
He lives there now, right? So, it could have been Trump.
Oh my God. No, it's not Trump. The Easter Bunny would have said something.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Easter Bunny had a totally different haircut. that's sort of mean. I should have said that. The coif always got me. Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. Mike Tyson.
Who's in the suit? I thought maybe it was Miss Harris.
Who?
Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you think? Anybody watching? What are some of your guesses? We have You guessed Obama. I guessed the vice president. Somebody's in that suit, and everybody, it's like the Masked Singer. You know, everybody wants them to take the head off. Who is it?
Now, where was Jill?
Wow. Well, she is the usual handler, isn't she? I think a day later, she told him to clap or walk this way or don't shake the air or something.
I hate to laugh, but it's so laughable. Yeah. Also in the news this week, Mike Tyson. It could have been Mike Tyson in the bunny suit. Did you hear he beat a passenger up on an airline?
No, he did not.
He beat the crap out of this guy.
Why? Do you know why?
Yeah, the guy was taunting him the whole time. Wow. He wanted a selfie with him, so he went and got a selfie with him, his buddy or something, and then the guy was drunk and was just belligerent and like taunting him and threw a water bottle at him supposedly, and that was enough for him. He got up and threw a quick little beating on him. He didn't beat him up bad, but he just he's like, all right, enough's enough. You asked for it, pal.
Well, I guess.
Good one, kid.
Yeah, Rudy Giuliani. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. I guess you kind of have to choose your battles there, don't you? Are you really going to pick on somebody that is a fighter his entire life? I don't think so.
Yeah, with a guy with a tattoo on his face that bit off another man's ear.
Yeah,
no. No thanks.
Yeah, no.
There's not enough alcohol on that plane to get me to do that.
No, me neither. All right. So what is your advice for people nervous in this crazy, crazy market before we say goodnight?
To quote the infamous quarterback from Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, relax. Just relax. It'll be, it's a turbulent market. If you're comfortable owning the things you own, just hang on. And if you're not, you have an advisor you can talk to, great. It's a good time to do a review. If you're this nervous, then it's time to review how much risk tolerance you really have. And if you don't have an advisor, call me up. Drop me an email. We'll do a Zoom conversation no matter where you're at, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And for those who, I have a Facebook page, Vista Front Partners, Inc. And if you go over there, I did put a video up last week specifically for parents out there. If you're looking to, what's the best way to save for my child, whether it's a custodial account, a 529 plan, what's the difference between a 529 plan at one firm versus my state's plan, blah, blah, blah. So I have a little video over there to help parents make that decision. And then, any questions, again, you're welcome to touch base.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope that maybe we can come together again next weekend and we can talk about the market. I hope things, I think I like what you said about rally. Like, yes, please. Can we order that, please?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see where the market goes. I try not to get too wound up day to day. Occasionally you're going to have big sell-offs like this. It's going to happen. Just like I said, keep your pencil sharp and your buy list handy, and it's on sale. So, just try not to freak out in the short term. Yeah, this is a long-term thing for all investors. So yes, to quote Aaron Rodgers, just relax.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. Anybody that would like to contact you, it's jc@vistafrontpartners.com. And let's do this again next week.
I'll be here. Hey, thanks so much. And everybody have a great weekend.
Yes. Everybody have a great weekend. Let's sign off together. And I'll see you next week. And next up, we're actually going to be talking to an actress. So maybe if you can catch this show later on, please do. It's Julianne Davis of Eyes Wide Shut. Do you remember her?
Yes. Yeah. Great film. Stanley Kubrick's last film. And anybody who is into conspiracy theories, there's so many conspiracy theories swirling around about this movie. Mm-hmm. And specifically, and I'm sure she probably knows about it, Mandy, the character in that movie.
Yes, that's right.
I would love to, toss it out there. I'd love to hear her thoughts on working with Kubrick, what she thought about his sudden death, because the movie wasn't finished. So they had to go back in and finish it. And what she thinks about other conspiracy theories that swirl around about hidden images in that movie. You can there's YouTube videos out there that will walk you through that movie and show hidden images. of things from like Illuminati parties, which is what that movie was based off of. My question is, was it specifically based off of one in the 1970s that happened in Nashville?
Okay.
One of the old conspiracy theories that movie was based loosely. Somebody got the idea to write that movie based off of what they call an Illuminati party of the elites that wore the masks and all that.
Very cool. Very, very cool. See, I didn't know all that background. So you're feeding me. Thank you.
Weird.
I'll definitely ask her.
Stanley Kubrick was one interesting cat. Yeah.
All right. Well, have a wonderful weekend. Do you do anything fun?
I'm working on a new book, and I'm working on updating the website for my nonprofit. And I'm probably gonna maybe watch a lot of TV. I'm gonna watch 3 movies on Netflix. That's my goal this weekend, to actually get my money's worth this month. Watch 3 movies.
You know what they are?
Actually, I'm watching one right now, about halfway through it. It's called The Closer. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it. Fascinating movie. It's I'm not going to give it away, but ex-cop kind of was involved in some shady stuff. Gets in the business of being a cleaner, meaning he goes and cleans up crime scenes and maybe like places like suicide, like things that families don't want to clean up. You have grandma fell, nobody found her for a month. Somebody's got to clean that up, so that's what he does. And he gets called in to clean this suicide. And it turns out the person was missing. And now the widow is like, okay, you come to my house by accident. He said, yeah, place, where's my husband? So now he's involved in this crime mystery. And it's really good. Kind of reminds me of that old film from the 90s, The Long Kiss Goodnight, with him and Gina Davis. Very good stuff. All
right. I love it. Well, let us know what the other 2 movies are next week, and we can talk more about it.
I love movies. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see you soon.